The city of Accra buzzed with life as cars weaved through the streets and vendors called out to passers-by. Among the towering skyscrapers stood Mensa Enterprises, one of the most powerful business empires in West Africa. Its owner, Kwabena Mensa, was a man known for his wealth, power, and intelligence. But despite having everything, he was lonely. Kwabena had been banned by love before. Every woman he had ever dated saw him as a walking bank account, not a man. He had learned that people only treated him with kindness because of his wealth. But what if he could meet someone who truly cared for him, not his fortune? Frustrated, Kwabena devised a risky plan. He would pretend to be blind and poor in front of his new employee, a personal assistant he had recently hired. If she was kind to him despite his condition, he would know she had a genuine heart. The woman he would test was Amina Diallo, a young woman from a humble background. She had been chosen from hundreds of applicants because of her intelligence, work ethic, and warm personality. Kwabena had never met her before, but her file suggested she was different. He needed to know. The first day of Amina's job arrived. Kwabena dressed in simple, worn-out clothes, put on dark sunglasses, and carried a cane. He sat in his office, waiting for her. When the door opened, he heard soft footsteps. "Good morning, sir," Amina greeted, her voice calm and respectful. Kwabena turned his head slightly, as if trying to locate her by sound. "Good morning," he responded, keeping his voice gentle but firm. She didn't hesitate to step closer and introduce herself properly. He could tell she was nervous, but she remained composed. Instead of treating him with pity, she treated him with dignity. She spoke clearly and helped organize his desk without being asked. Hours passed, and Kwabena continued his act. He pretended to fumble with papers, knocking some to the floor. Without hesitation, Amina bent down and picked them up for him. "Sir, if you'd like, I can assist you with sorting these," she offered. "You don't have to," he replied, testing her reaction. "I don't mind," she said with a small smile. That day, Kwabena observed everything, the way she never hesitated to help, how she never complained, and how she treated him with kindness without being overly sympathetic. At lunchtime, he took things a step further. He pretended to struggle with his food, dropping a spoon by accident. Some employees snickered quietly in the background, but Amina stood up immediately. "Let me help you," she said, picking up the spoon and handing him a new one. Kwabena felt a strange warmth in his chest. The rest of the week continued the same way. He would create small tests, and each time, Amina passed effortlessly. But something unexpected was happening. Kwabena was falling for her. She was not just kind, she was strong, intelligent, and had a quiet grace that fascinated him. When they spoke, he could tell she wasn't just an employee. She was a woman with dreams, passion, and a beautiful soul. One evening, as they worked late, Kwabena sighed and leaned back. "Amina, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sir," she responded. "If you had everything in the world, money, power, what would you want most?" Amina thought for a moment before answering. "Happiness. Real happiness, with people who love me for who I am, not what I have." Kwabena's heart ached at her words. She was everything he had been searching for. But he had built their connection on a lie. And he knew that when the truth came out, he might lose her forever. The days at Mensa Enterprises passed, and each one made it harder for Kwabena to keep up his act. Amina continued to prove herself as a compassionate, hardworking woman. She treated him with the same respect every day, never showing irritation or impatience, even when he intentionally made things difficult to test her kindness. One afternoon, Kwabena sat in his office, pretending to struggle with a document he couldn't read. He ran his fingers along the paper as if trying to make sense of the words. Amina, standing nearby, hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Sir, would you like me to read it for you?" she asked softly. Kwabena turned his head slightly, as if considering. "If you don't mind," he said. She took the paper and began reading in a clear, steady voice. Kwabena closed his eyes behind his dark glasses, listening. There was something soothing about the way she spoke, something genuine. Unlike others who often exaggerated their patience around him, Amina treated him naturally, like a capable man who simply needed assistance. As the days turned into weeks, their conversations became more personal. Amina, despite her professionalism, started to let her guard down around him. She told him about her life, her struggles, and her dreams. "I grew up in a small town," she shared one day, as she helped him organize files. "My mother always told me that true wealth isn't in money, but in the people who love you. I've always believed that." Kwabena felt his chest tighten at her words. She spoke with such conviction, and yet she had no idea that the man she was speaking to was one of the richest men in Africa. He wanted to tell her the truth, but fear held him back. What if she felt betrayed? What if she thought this had all been a cruel joke? One evening, as they finished work, the sky outside had turned into deep hues of purple and gold. Kwabena turned his face toward the window, pretending to sense the shift in light. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Amina said, gazing out. Kwabena smiled slightly. "Describe it to me." Amina looked at him, surprised by the request, but she obliged. "The sky is deep purple, melting into soft orange at the edges. The city lights are flickering on, one by one, like tiny stars on the ground." Her voice was filled with wonder, and Kwabena wished more than anything that he could take off his glasses and look into her eyes as she spoke. "You see the world beautifully," he murmured. Amina chuckled lightly. "My mother used to say that the heart sees more than the eyes ever will." Kwabena's hands curled into fists on his lap. If only she knew how true that was for him. That night, for the first time in a long while, Kwabena felt something unfamiliar: hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, he had finally found a woman who loved him for who he was, and not for his wealth. But secrets had a way of revealing themselves. And when the truth finally came out, everything could fall apart. Weeks passed, and Kwabena found himself falling deeper for Amina. She was not just kind, she was strong, determined, and full of warmth. She had no idea that the man she helped daily, the man she spoke to so freely, was actually one of the richest men in Africa. And yet, she treated him with genuine care, never looking at him with pity or frustration. One evening, as the sun dipped beyond the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, Amina found Kwabena seated by the office window. His dark sunglasses hid his eyes as usual, and his cane rested beside him. "You always sit here at sunset," she observed, setting a cup of tea beside him. Kwabena smiled. "I can't see it, but I can feel it," he replied. "The warmth on my skin, the way the air changes." "Describe it to me again." Amina chuckled softly. "The sky is a blend of orange and soft pink, fading into a deep purple. The clouds look like strokes of a paintbrush. And the city is alive. Lights flickering on, people moving like tiny specks, all chasing something." Kwabena listened intently, his heart aching. He wished he could drop the act, remove his glasses, and let her see the real him. But what if it changed everything? What if she walked away? One day, as a test, he pretended to be short on money. They had gone out for lunch, and he patted his pockets as if searching for something. "Amina, I think I forgot my wallet," he said hesitantly. Without a second thought, Amina pulled out her small purse. "Don't worry, sir. I'll pay." Kwabena hesitated. "Are you sure? I can pay you back." She smiled. "You don't have to. It's just food. What kind of person would I be if I couldn't help someone in need?" His heart swelled with emotion. Amina didn't hesitate, didn't ask questions. She simply gave. That night, Kwabena lay awake in bed staring at the ceiling. His emotions were tangled. He had planned to test her, to see if she was genuine. But now, he was the one trapped in his own deception. Could he really keep up the lie forever? A few days later, Amina arrived at work, looking worried. Kwabena noticed immediately. "You seem troubled," he said gently. She hesitated before speaking. "It's my brother. He's sick, and the hospital bills are more than we can afford." Kwabena clenched his fists. He could easily pay the bills, but if he did, she might question how a blind, struggling man could afford such a thing. Instead, he carefully asked, "Is there anything I can do to help?" Amina smiled sadly. "Just pray for him." Kwabena swallowed the lump in his throat. She wasn't asking for money, wasn't looking for favors. She carried her burdens with quiet strength. That night, he made an anonymous donation to the hospital, ensuring her brother got the best care. He would never let her suffer if he could help it. But with every passing day, the guilt weighed heavier. How long before the truth shattered everything? Kwabena was trapped between love and deception. Every moment he spent with Amina only made it harder to keep up the lie. He longed to tell her the truth, to remove his dark glasses, abandon the cane, and reveal that he was not only a man who could see but also a billionaire who owned the company she worked for. But fear held him back. What if she felt betrayed? What if she walked away and never forgave him? One evening, as they locked up the office late, Amina sighed and leaned against the desk. "Sir, can I ask you something?" Kwabena, still pretending to fumble with his cane, nodded. "Of course." She hesitated, then spoke. "Do you ever wish things were different? That you could see?" Kwabena's chest tightened. "Sometimes. But I think we all have things we wish were different." Amina nodded thoughtfully. "I think you're stronger than most people, sir. You don't let your struggles make you bitter." Kwabena swallowed hard. If only she knew. The following week, an unexpected twist threatened everything. Kwabena had been careful, no one at the company knew who he really was except for a select few. But that day, as Amina walked into the office, she overheard something shocking. Two senior executives were discussing a charity gala. "I heard Mr. Mensah himself will be there," one of them said. The other chuckled. "The billionaire who owns this whole empire. Good luck getting a meeting with him. He's always so secretive about his personal life." Amina froze. "Mr. Mensah? The billionaire?" Her heartbeat quickened. She had worked here for months, and she had never seen the company's mysterious owner. Curious, she turned to leave, but then, fate intervened. As she reached the hallway, she saw him. Kwabena. But this was not the blind, struggling man she had come to admire. He stood tall, without his cane. His dark sunglasses were gone, revealing sharp, intelligent eyes. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, his entire posture radiating power and confidence. Amina felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her. He could see. He had never been blind. And he was no ordinary employee, he was Kwabena Mensah, the billionaire who owned everything. Her chest tightened. Had everything been a lie? Kwabena turned, and their eyes met for the first time. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, a pain flashed across Amina's face as she whispered, "You lied to me." Kwabena took a step forward, desperation in his gaze. "Amina, let me explain." But she shook her head, eyes filled with hurt and betrayal. Everything we talked about, everything I believed, was it all just a game to you?" Her voice trembled. Kwabena's heart pounded. This was exactly what he had feared. "Amina, please. I did it because I needed to know if you truly cared for me, not for my money. Tears burned in Amina's eyes. And what about me? Do you think I deserved to be tested? Like I was some kind of experiment? Kwabena reached for her, but she stepped back. I trusted you, she whispered. Then, before he could say another word, she turned and walked away. And for the first time in his life, Kwabena Mensah, the billionaire who had everything, felt truly powerless. Kwabena sat alone in his grand estate, surrounded by wealth but feeling utterly empty. The towering ceilings, the golden chandeliers, the luxurious furniture, none of it mattered anymore. The one thing he truly wanted, the one thing his money could never buy, was gone. Amina. She had ignored every call, every text. She had even quit her job. He had gone to the office, hoping to see her, only to be met with an empty desk and a resignation letter. His heart ached in a way he had never known before. He had spent so long trying to protect himself from heartbreak, yet here he was, broken. As the days passed, the silence became unbearable. He couldn't sit back and let her slip away. He needed to fix this, to make her understand that his feelings were real. That night, he got into his car and drove straight to her apartment. It was a modest place, nothing compared to the estates he owned, but it was warm, full of life, the kind of home money couldn't buy. He saw her sitting outside on the small porch, staring up at the night sky. She looked lost in thought, her expression distant. He took a deep breath, gathering his courage before stepping forward. Amina. She tensed at his voice but didn't turn around. Why are you here? Because I can't let you go. Not like this. She sighed and finally turned to face him. Her eyes were tired, filled with disappointment. Kwabena, you lied to me. You let me believe you were someone else just so you could test me. Do you know how humiliating that is? His chest tightened. I know. And I hate myself for hurting you. But Amina, I swear, everything I felt for you was real. Every moment we spent together, every conversation, every laugh, it was real. She shook her head. You tested me like I was some kind of experiment. Do you think I wouldn't have loved you without all of that? Without the lies? Kwabena swallowed hard. Would you? Amina let out a bitter laugh. I don't know anymore. Because now I don't even know who you are. The weight of her words crushed him. He had spent all this time trying to see if her love was real, but now he was the one who had lost her trust. Slowly, he sank to his knees before her, his hands trembling as he reached for hers. She hesitated but didn't pull away. Amina, I will spend the rest of my life proving to you that I am the same man, the man who cares about you, who respects you, who loves you. If I have to give up everything, my fortune, my company, my title, just to be with you, I will. She stared at him, eyes wide with disbelief. You would do that? In a heartbeat, he whispered. Tears welled in her eyes. She searched his face, looking past the deception, past the mistakes, and into the man she had once trusted. Slowly, she reached out and cupped his face, her fingers trembling against his skin. I don't need you to give up your fortune, Kwabena. I just need you to never lie to me again. He exhaled shakily, his heart pounding. I swear to you, never again. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. Then, finally, she leaned in, pressing her lips softly against his. He kissed her back, pouring every ounce of his regret, his love, and his promise into that moment. It was hesitant at first, but as her arms wrapped around him, he knew that she had forgiven him. Not completely, not yet, but enough to give him a second chance. A week later, Kwabena held Amina's hand as he introduced her to the world, not as his employee, not as the woman he had tested, but as the woman he loved. And this time, there were no secrets, no masks, no tests. Only love, honesty, and a future they would build together.